Good morning, good morning. Feel like I'm back at home. I know so many people here this morning. You know, when I was watching the video and just kind of reflecting as I was preparing to be here today, I'm looking at President Obama, and like Dr. Young, that's my president. And I'm looking at him, and I'm thinking about the various conversations that I hear people have sometime about what President Obama didn't do. You ever hear those conversations? And sometimes they post that kind of stuff on social media, what President Obama didn't do. But as I look into this audience, I'm seeing a very big example of what he did do, just by virtue of the fact that you're here. So I don't engage in those conversations at all. In fact, I'm open to debate anybody that wants to talk about what he didn't do, because he did so much, particularly when I compare it to what's going on today. But that's a whole nother story, right? But great to be here. The young men in the room, stand up for me very quickly. I was going to ask you to give them an ovation, but I don't have to. Hey, young men, remain standing for me until they finish. Remain standing for me. Folks, just take a look at these young men. They're all over the room. As a matter of fact, I didn't realize so many were going to be here. You notice these screens next to me, on the two sides of me? That was a PowerPoint I was going to do for adults, so we're going to scrap that. Just take my contact information and we're going to keep it up there, but I'm not going through any slides. Take a look at these young men. There's a lot of power in this room. Within those young men, there's a lot of brilliance in this room. There's a lot of extraordinary potential in this room. I'm quite confident that there's a percentage of the young men who are standing right here that don't even know the potential that lies within them, don't realize the greatness that's within. And even though you may be doing extraordinary things right now, in your school, in your community, in your household, I still bet that many of you don't realize the potential that's lying within yourselves. Repeat after me, young men. I am.
I am.
Oh man, I ain't hear you. Let's try that again. I am.
I am.
I am.
I am.
I am. My brother's keeper. I am my brother's keeper. I am my brother's keeper. See, we say that because not only must you brothers look out for one another, but there's some younger brothers back in your respective communities that need your example. They may but they may not hear my words. I may be so removed from them in age that they may not be able to relate to me. But you right there. They see you. They can talk to you. They can relate to you. They can identify with you. So therefore, you have a responsibility. You have an obligation to go beyond the cliche that I am my brother's keeper to being your brother's keeper. That is your responsibility as young men, particularly in this regard, young men of color. That's your duty. That's your destiny. And certainly that's my marching orders for you this morning. Make sure that it's more than cliche, that you're living it. You may be seated. You know, as I look into the audience and I look at the young men, I think about myself when I was their age. And all of them in this room, they're far ahead of me. So whatever it is that I have accomplished and whatever it is I will accomplish, you're already ahead of me. Because see, I lost interest in school in grade 8. So at grade 9, beginning at grade 9, I didn't go to school. I just walked the streets of East Orange, New Jersey, which is right next to Newark. And whatever those distractions were out there in the street, whatever those temptations were out there in the streets, I immersed myself deeply into it. So that was my life as a 13-year-old. So you're ahead of me. My mom was so distraught that she fought and fought and fought to save her son from himself. So I went on back to school just to satisfy her. It had nothing to do with me because I had no goals. I had no dream. I had no ambition. I had no purpose. I had no vision. As long as those streets entertained me, I was good. So I went for her, and long story short, graduated in 5 years instead of 4, and my GPA was a 1.5. That means I showed up and did nothing. So upon leaving for graduation a year later in 79 instead of 78, my counselor called me down to the office and told me to have a seat. And he said, young man, and I'll never forget, he started pointing. He said, young man, you're never going to amount to anything anyway. And I said, okay. And I believed that at that time. I didn't know, and neither did he know, that literally 30 years later, one of the books that I had written, of the 8 I've written, that book would be used to train every teacher in that district. He didn't know that was coming. So I'm saying to the young people right now, certainly I don't know your situation. I don't know where you are along the continuum, but it really doesn't matter. Because what matters is where you're going to wind up. And I'm not even at my destination yet. I got a whole lot more work to do. But I'm waking up every morning with the mindset that I'm going to elevate to a higher place than I was the day before. And see, you, as you make your journey, you got to have it in your mind that who I will be by the end of the day will be much more significant than who I was when the day began. Because every day, you striving to become greater and greater and greater than you were the day prior. So sometimes people like to get on me for saying I'm a workaholic, but I take pride in that because I got big dreams, I got big goals, I got big ideas. I remember when I met Dr. Young many, many years ago. And that was back when I had this little $5 book I wrote, and I used to carry this crate full of books with me. And I'm peddling these books all over Harlem and all over Brooklyn and all over Queens. I'm just getting somebody to try to buy my books. And I met him, and he used to have me speak at various different spots. And neither one of us knew that over time, I'd become this international presenter. But I knew that I wanted to be somewhere, and I knew I had to put in the work, the grind, in order to get there. So I'm saying to you that yes, there are going to be obstacles. Yes, there are going to be some toxic people along the way. Yes, there are going to be difficulties and challenges. But I'm telling you, you got to be on your grind despite whatever those obstacles may be. So now here's this situation. I said, this counselor said, young man, you'll never be anything. So I go on and enroll in a junior college in New Jersey, and I spent 5 years as a full-time student and never graduated because once again, I wasn't focused. So that's 10 years wasted. And then I said to my mom, I'm ready to get it together. I'm going to Kane University in New Jersey. I need one favor of you, Mom. She said, what's that? I said, you got to pay the tuition because I ain't got nothing. She paid the tuition. Now watch this, young man. I stumbled on a book when I got there, 33 years ago. I'm in that school. I arrived at that school. I don't know what I'm going to do with my life. I just know I'm in the college, but I might wind up wasting another 10 years. But I stumbled on a book. The book was entitled The Miseducation of the Negro. The book was a game changer. The book was written in 1933 by the great doctor, scholar, author, researcher, historian, teacher, publisher, Dr. Carter G. Woodson. I might add, the second African American to receive a PhD from Harvard. And I start reading this book, y'all, and there was this paragraph in the introduction. I've been a public speaker for 32 years. I've given about 2,000 plus presentations over those 32 years. Of those 2,000, I've probably quoted this book about 1,900 times. This paragraph changed my trajectory. So I want to share it with you. He said, when you control a man's thinking, you do not have to worry about his actions. You do not have to tell him not to stand here or over yonder. He will find his quote unquote proper place and he will stay in it. You do not need to send him to the back door. He will go without being told. In fact, if there is no back door, he'll cut one for his special benefit. His education makes it necessary. When I read that, brothers, I said, wait a minute. He talking to me from back in 1933. I read it again and again and again. He said, as long as your thinking is controlled by outside and external forces, then you pose no threat nor challenge to anybody. You are self-contained. I said, man, no wonder I wasted all them years. Because my thinking is not critical. Because my thinking is not analytical. It's on the surface. Hey, young men, are you thinking deeply? Are you thinking analytically? Are you asking yourselves, why is there a need for MBK? Don't just accept MBK at face value. Here's a program. Ask yourself, why the necessity? Why all over the country do we find these alarming statistics as it relates to the young men? But here's my premise. Ain't nothing wrong with the young men. But when we look at national media, when we listen to the pundits, it leaves us with the impression that there's something wrong with our young men, and they're not. They're born brilliant. They're born extraordinary. They're born most highly capable. But then, Principal Kafele, what happens? Well, I've discovered I was a principal in Newark and East Orange for 14 years. They tell me I did a good job. Well, within that, I discovered something. I discovered if you put in the midst, in the presence, surround the young men with somebody with the mindset that I will never, ever give up on you. A mindset that says, I believe in you with everything I've got. I found out something. I found out when I put that individual in the midst of that young man has no choice but to fly. No choice. But what if, on the other hand, he walks into a classroom with somebody that looks at him and in the mindset concludes, he's not going to make it. And the mindset says, well, if I could get them to a C, we doing something with your low expectation self. See, with the mindset that I want to save them, I don't need you to save me. I want you to build me. I want you to empower me. I want you to help take me to the next level. So if I've got folks in there in that building, in those classrooms that say, my students will soar because I am their teacher. See, that's an attitude. If I got a principal of a school that says, my students will soar because I'm the one that leads them. See, that's a different mindset. Because now you and I as the adults, we're going to take ownership of everything that happens in that building. We ain't pointing our fingers at nothing to say it's their fault, it's parents' fault, it's community's fault, it's music's fault, it's television's fault. We taking personal responsibility for the lives of our children. Brother Muhammad said ownership. See, ownership. So now, here I am. I read this book, and now I graduate summa cum laude because my attitude changed, young people. So now let's fast forward. October 16, 1995. That's a big day in my life. That's yours too, I know that. That's a big day in my life. Because on October 16, 1995, I jumped on the bus, y'all. And I went down to D.C. And I joined, they say 1 million, but it looked like 2 million men at the Million Man March, the first one. And when I was down there, this young guy, brand new school teacher, I made a pledge, y'all. A lot of us did, but we didn't all take it seriously. But some of us did. We said we're going back to our respective communities and we're going to make a bigger impact. So I came on back and I started working exclusively with these young men. I said, ain't no way in the world that these kids are going to graduate from me as males. Because as you see on that screen, being male isn't good enough. I said, when I get back to that school as a teacher, we're going to work on building, creating, developing young men. See, there's a difference between being a young male and a young man. Tremendous difference. So then I become principal. And I go to the superintendent. And I said, Superintendent, Doc, I need the development of my young men to be at the core of what we do, which I want to focus on here before I close it out. See, I looked at the website when I was preparing for this presentation today, the one that I'm not doing. And it had these milestones. As a matter of fact, if in the back there, the tech guys, do me a favor, go to my screen with the first screen that has text on it. Just go to that for me, because it'll take too long if I do it. Keep going. The first one that has text on it, about 6 bullet points. So I'm looking at the website, and then it had these 6 initiatives of New York MBK. And hopefully the adults in the room, at least here it is, put that on the screen, put those 6 on there for me. So I'm looking at them, and I spent a lot of time studying those 6 bullet points that were relative to New York. Here they are here. And it says, ensuring equitable access to high-quality schools and programs. Expanding prevention. This is the only thing in this presentation I'm going to go over. Expanding prevention, early warning, intervention, and intervention services. Using differentiated approaches based on need and culture. Responding to structural and institutional racism. Making comprehensive and coordinated support services widely available. And engaging families and communities in a trusted and respected way. Now, I've read that for days. And every time I read it, I said, man, that's ambitious. Because there's this one variable. If it's not in place, then what you're reading here and I guess I'm being instructed for New York State right now. What you're reading here, it's not going to happen. One variable, and that one variable is the building principle. The principle. If the principal doesn't own that, like he or she owns the suit on their back, then I'm telling you, this is just an exercise in futility. That's all it is. You can't rely on others in the building making this happen. The principal has to own it, embrace it, like it's his or her own. Because when you talk about ensuring equitable access to high quality schools and programs, that's the principle. When you talk about going down a few, responding to structural and institutional racism, that's the principle. Every one of those, that's the principle. It doesn't mean that the others in the building are not responsible, but it starts with that building principle. So principals in this room, but the choir might be here. As you talk to the folks that ain't in the choir, let them know you got to own those bullet points in order to make it happen for these young people in their respective schools, right? So now, let me talk to these young people real quick before I step down. We talk about, go back to my original screen for me, sir. We talk about the difference between being a male and a young man. Well, we could talk until tomorrow this time about those differences, but I want to give you this. I want you to put this in your mental notebook. Those of you that have a pen, those of you that have or a pencil and paper, or you're using your phone, if I see you typing, I'm not going to get mad because you're writing my notes, right? So, hopefully, right? So I'm saying to you that a man, first and foremost, he's got this love, respect, appreciation for, and responsibility for himself. That's number one. So himself being this package, if you will. He says, I got to make this thing here, me, the best thing I can make it into being. And I got to be the best version of myself every day. So every day, he's got this focus on how can I improve me? How can I make me better? How can I be the best me possible? So he looks at these 5 ingredients, and this is what I want you to write down or keep here. And ingredient number 1 is this word, belief. And when I say belief, I mean when he goes to the mirror and he sees the reflection of the person in the mirror looking back at him, that person has this strong belief in you, meaning the person in your mirror. So now here's this person has this idea that I want to do whatever it is you want to do with your life. But then you run into some people that question your idea. Like I remember when I left North Tech, I wanted to be an international presenter, trainer, consultant of teachers and principals. And everybody except the people very close to me said, man, you lost your mind. You leaving your job? You built that school. You leaving it? What about your health benefits? Who's going to pay for that $2,000 a month? What about your children's tuition? You got 3 of them. What about your mortgage? What about just living day to day? And I said to them, all I could tell you is just watch me. They said, my boss said, how many clients do you have? You have any clients? I said, no, I don't have any clients. And you're leaving a 6-figure salary job, your principalship, for an idea? Hear me, young people. I said, yeah. I said, but just keep your eye on me, right? See, here's what they didn't understand. I had profound belief in myself. I don't care what anybody thinks of me. I don't care what anybody's saying about me. I believe I could go up on the top of this building right now and spread my wings and fly back to Newark or Jersey City, right? I believe that. I believe I can soar. Young people, young men, you got to believe in yourself, and you've got to protect your belief in yourself. Because if you don't protect it, and that word is key, if you don't protect it, then you're going to let somebody else take it away from you. And then sometime later on in life, you're going to be in the theater sitting up in the balcony, watching a performance on the stage of somebody else starring in your dream. See, I'm not going to watch somebody starring in my dream. I'm going to be the star of my dream. See, but so many of us, we will watch somebody else doing that which we thought about doing, but we were scared to take the next step because we did not believe in ourselves. You got to believe in you when nobody else does, even if it's your own parent. If it's your best friend, if it's your homie, it doesn't matter. You got to believe that it's going to happen for you. Number 2, purpose. Oh, man. When I say purpose, I'm talking about your definition for your life. Somebody called me just the other day. They said, Kafele, we want you to speak at such and such program. I said, tell me the theme of the program. They told me the theme, and they decided to attach the dollar amount to it. It was a lot of money, quite a few thousand. I said to them, thank you, but no thanks. Here's why. The person without a purpose, they take it. Let me take this money and run. But the person with purpose, they walk this very straight path. They're not over here. They're not over here. They're not back here. They walk this very straight and narrow path because their purpose is their definition of who they are. See, like if you go to the dictionary app on your phone, every word in that dictionary has a definition. That means every word in that dictionary has meaning. But if you went to that app and looked up a word and there was a blank space next to the word, that would mean that word is undefined. It has no meaning, it has no purpose, and therefore it's not even a word because it has no definition. Well, think about your lives now. Imagine you walked into this convention hall today, but you didn't have a purpose for your life. See, you just here because someone invited you. That's not good enough. See, you got to have a definition, because your definition will control your thinking and it will control your actions. When one has a definition, they're not going to do everything anymore. See, I'm not going to speak at every program. It's got to be consistent with my purpose. And if it's not consistent with my purpose, thanks but no thanks. Give that money to somebody else. See, hey, young people, what's your purpose? And do your actions dictate your purpose? Do you engage in behaviors which support your purpose? When you're in that classroom every day, is your purpose evident? See, there's always got to be evidence of your purpose, evidence of your reality, evidence of your presence in a room. You have got to have purpose for your life. And then once you have determined it, you got to walk it. But a lot of young people say, but Principal Kafele, how do I find my purpose? Which is a very good question. And it's very easy, very simple. You find that quiet time in your day. You find that quiet space somewhere whether it be home or wherever the case may be, some corner somewhere, and you start to introduce yourself to yourself. You start to find who's inside. There are young people sitting in this room, there are probably adults in this room as well, who are not even in touch with their inner self. See, that thing inside that's screaming to come out and do big things. It's repressed. See, if you on the phone all day, if you plugged into music all day, if you plugged into a TV all day, you plugged into conversing with people all day, it's always stimuli coming in, then you don't have the opportunity to just have you communicate with you because you're too busy communicating with these other external forces. So now you can't get into who is that inside. I tell people all the time, there's nothing else in life I want to do. If I die today, I'm good. I lived my dream. See, I don't want to die, but because I found my life's purpose, my life's mission. You see, as an educator, what is your purpose? Let me say it differently. Why were you born? See, what is your role on this planet? You got to find that. You got to look within. Of course, significant others can help you to find it, but you got to look within yourself. You got to find that quiet time, and you got to spend that quiet time just communicating with you, finding you, identifying with you, discovering aspects of you that you don't even know exist within you. But you can't do it with the phone on. You can't do it on Snapchat. You can't do it listening to music. You can't do it hanging out with people. You got to spend time with yourself, and you got to enjoy that time in your own company. Purpose. Number 3, obligation. I say you got this obligation to be great. That's your obligation. One of the highlights of 2018 for me thus far, I'm not a movie person, but I went to the movies recently and I saw this movie, Black Panther. I'm not a movie person, but I had to see that because I am a social media person. And I noticed on my timeline, all these black folks, now I gotta be very specific on that one. All these black folks was on my timeline with this African attire, right? And they were at the movie theater posing in front of the sign that said Black Panther. And I said, man, what's all that hype about? Because I'm not a movie person. In fact, I'm not a comic book person. I don't know what Black Panther is. When they said Black Panther was coming out, I thought it was a movie about Huey P. Newton and Bobby Seale. I didn't know. I had no idea. So then I found out it's a comic book character. So obligation. Hear me, somebody. I'm getting ready to shut it down. Obligation. So I'm at this school. Well, I'm at the movie, and I see the imagery on the screen, right? And like as I was reading my timeline, people were complaining on my Facebook timeline. They were saying, the one thing I don't like about going to see Black Panther is the people are talking too loud in the theater. Now that has implications for why we're here today. And it has implications for the classroom because it was mentioned earlier, implicit bias. That came up in this room, implicit bias. See, if I'm in the theater at a Black Panther movie and it's this predominantly African-American audience, right? And there's this communication going on between the person sitting in the seat and the people on the screen, and you mad because you can't hear the movie. Well, that's because you don't understand the culture. See, the culture says, this is what we do, right? We do it in church. We do it in here. This part of the culture is not a bad thing. So I tend to be a quiet guy, except when I got mics in front of me, then I get loud. So I didn't have mics in front of me at the movie. but the imagery made me into the person I am when I got a mic in front of me, and I started talking to the screen too. So I understood it, especially when I saw the power of them black women in that movie. I started talking to that screen. I was like, go ahead, go ahead. So when I talk about obligation, sometimes it's hard to strive to maximize one's potential and understands one's obligation because of these competing influences that stifle our aspirations and our creativity. So when I saw that, and I saw the number, let me focus on these girls for a second, and I saw the number of young girls in the theater and got to see the imagery, the depiction of black women in that film, I said, man, imagine we can just multiply that, right? Accentuate that. So they're seeing that in everything, not just in this movie. And see, when we talk about this obligation to be great, to be extraordinary, to maximize one's potential, then it's important that we got the right things and people around us in order to get there. It's like, it's reminiscent. I was at this school the other day in Chicago, and it was an alternative school. And the principal said to me, before I spoke to them, he said, just talk to them for about 10 minutes. He said, you're going to lose them after 10. He said, these kids, all of them have an arrest record. 50% of them engaged in home invasions, another large percent carjackings, and all sorts of stuff. So they came into the room, and they were talking, they were cursing. They weren't speaking to me until I positioned myself at the door where you had to speak to me because you couldn't get in without going through me. These were high school students. You had to shake my hand, look in my eyes, and say hello because I'm going to make you, right? So now they sitting down, they slouched, and they looking at me like, what's this guy going to talk about? And I hope he hurries up. So then I said to myself, I said, okay, Kafele, you got 10 seconds. Not 10 seconds to win them over, but 10 seconds to tap into the Wakanda spirit. See, the Wakanda spirit. So I just started talking about their history. I just started out and I told them your story did not start in 1619. So at that moment, I had them. And we went on and talked for an hour, right? They weren't even trying to get up and leave. But here was what was interesting. None of them wanted to ask me questions, but I could see in their eyes they had questions. Peer pressure said, I can't ask him questions. So then when I ended the program, the talk, a lot of them came and walked up to me, and they were whispering, hey, Principal Kafele, can I get your business card? I want to stay in touch with you. See, in other words, they heard something that made sense. See, for the first time in their lives, they heard that they've got this history, this replete with science and mathematics and technology and architecture and engineering and scholarship and medicine and so on and so on. They thought they started as slaves. See, when we take these young men and we introduce them to their history in 1619, we start them off at a deficit that it becomes very difficult for them to overcome throughout their lives. Because we starting them 50 yards back. We haven't introduced them to the fact that science and technology and mathematics is flowing through their veins. Their brilliance is expected. Their brilliance is natural. And when they understand that, then they understand their obligation to continue along that continuum. Number 4, determination. I'm saying, young man, you got to want this thing. See, it's not somebody, your parents, your teachers, your principals, me, saying we want you to be successful. That's not good enough. You got to want it within yourself. But there's got to be evidence You got to put forth the effort on a daily basis, not just your schoolwork, but your preparation for the next level. That's every day. That's 7 days a week. You got to have your own drive, your own determination, your own passion to take it to another level. That's got to come from you, not somebody else begging you to do the right thing. Because at the end of the day, the difference between success or failure is a decision. It's not what happens out here. What happens out here might make you have to take a different course, but you'll still wind up where you want to be, but it might take you a longer journey. Might take 10 years where someone else it took 1 year. Might take 20 years, might take 30 years. Because you got to go a different journey, because you got to navigate the isms of the world. But it doesn't mean you're not going to get there. See, but you got to have that drive. You got to have that ambition. You got to have that passion to get there. The last word is vision. Vision. You got to see it. You got to see it in your mind's eye. I've been using the word dream up to this point, but the much more potent word would be the word vision. Because in your mind's eye, you have to see yourself doing that which you said you want to do. If there are folks in this room, and I'm you, I just want to go to the NBA. I just want to go to the NFL. I'm going to be in that draft that was on last night. That's going to be me one day. I'm not going to stifle that dream. Not me. That would be irresponsible of me from this stage. But I will say this. You've heard it many times. You're going to hear it one more time. You must have a backup plan. You must have a plan B. You must have a plan C, D, E. And when I say plan, I don't mean a thought, but I mean you have written down your roadmap. You have written down every goal you have, everything I've accomplished in life, folks. It is written on that laptop sitting at that table. So I write the goal, I write the plan, and now I can formulate a vision of where I will one day be. But then I got these short-term goals to get me to the long-term goal, and I got it locked in my mind's eye what each of those goals is going to look like when I accomplish them. You have got to have a vision of where it is you are going. So again, those 5 words were belief, purpose, obligation, determination, and vision. I'm saying to you, in fact, I'm promising you, if you take those 5 words and incorporate them into you, make them a part of your journey, that you will always believe in you, in your goals, and the process to get there, that you will always walk in your purpose, that you'll understand you have an obligation just based on the folks who laid it down before you prior to your existence, folks who made a path for you to walk upon and to continue to build. If you understand that you got to be determined, you got to want it, and recognize the sky is your limit, and then you see yourself there. You see yourself doing it before you take the first step. You see yourself in the university of your choice. You see yourself in the career of your choice. You see yourself doing big things. You're not settling for average. You're not settling for mediocre, because you were not born average. You were not born mediocre, but you were born to do big things. So that becomes your responsibility, but you got to see yourself right now on April 27, 2018, already in the driver's seat, getting it done. So as I close, I want to close the way I started. Young men, stand up for me one more time. My younger brothers, they got a big day planned for you today. A lot of good stuff going on. Make sure that you take away with you everything that you receive. There's nobody up here wasting time. People are here today because they care about you, because they love you, and they understand that when you're successful, the world is a better place. So I want you to understand, I want you to repeat after me, young men. Nothing. Can't hear you. Nothing. No one will stop me, but me. Again, nothing. No one will stop me, but me. I am the number one determinant of the success or failure of myself. In other words, don't say anything. In other words, I'm saying to you, you're the one that makes that determination, not what's happening out here. You're the one at the end of the day. I always define success as the ability to live one's own life on one's own terms. See, some of us, not in this room, but outside of here, we're going to kind of fall into some employment that we may not like. We may feel unappreciated. We may feel overly qualified, underpaid. It's just some job. But others of us, we're going to make the decision, maybe right here in this room today, the decision that, you know something? I'm going to live this life, meaning you, my life, on my terms, meaning doing something that you truly want to do. See, when I wake up in the morning, y'all, I look into the mirror. I go there first after I pray. And I got this little ritual. I look in that mirror and I see my reflection. And I say, good morning, boss. I say, you have an extraordinary day. You have your best day yet. I do that every day because there's something about waking up and knowing that I'm my own boss, that I got no boss to answer to. I got no boss to clock in with. I got no boss to dictate my salary. I got no boss to tell me when I could use the restroom. I got no boss to tell me when I can take lunch. I got no boss to tell me when I can go on vacation. It's something about taking this little itty bitty thing called an idea. I-D-E-A. Idea. And turning your idea, shaping and molding your idea into a way of life. See, it's something about that. I'm saying to you, I'm getting off this stage. Don't sleep on what I just said. Don't just fall into some job unless that's what you love. If it's going to be a job, let it be something you work towards. That this is what I want to do. You don't have to be an entrepreneur, but you're going to do what you prepared yourself to do. That's the point I'm making. That you living your life on your terms. This is what I want to do. So you got the employment doing what you want to do. Or you decided, because some of y'all in this room, you don't take direction good. I know you in here. You don't take orders well. I'm that guy. That's probably why I've been up here so long, right? So now, if you in here, which I know you are, then you got to be thinking entrepreneurship. Because you're going to be butting heads with your boss for the rest of your life because you don't take orders well. That's me. People that know my story know I fought with a few superintendents over the years, right? So I'm saying to you, then you got to think about what's my idea? What's this little thing called an idea that I could turn into my lifestyle, the way I live, that pays me, that feeds me, that takes care of my family, that lets me live my life the way I want to live on my terms. You got to be thinking about that. And if you keep that ingrained in here, I promise you, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, you'll think back, I don't remember what that bald-headed cat's name was, but he planted in my mind that I could live my life on my terms. I hope I could find him one day so I could thank him because I'm doing just that. With that said, brothers, I appreciate all of you. I love you guys. Do your thing. Thank you.